Good morning, everyone. My name is Dale Fye. I'm the chapter president of the Access User Groups Eastern Time Users Group. And this morning we're going to have a discussion, or I'm going to talk about using Access to fill Word mail merge documents. I'm going to be your presenter. I'm the owner of Developing Solutions, LLC. I'm an independent software developer specializing in Access and SQL Server, and the developer of Access add-ins, Access Shortcut Tool, and my Developing Solutions Link Table Manager, which are both available on my website. Just a note of interest for those of you who participate in Utter Access and who may have tools of interest for people to use or sell. Appears that Utter Access is going to open up an area where developers can post information about their tools and make them available for others to use. I just saw a brief email on it this morning. Have to dig into it a little bit more, but I'll talk about probably more about it next month if that time arrives. All right, so Access is a great, in my notes here says superb report development tool. There are just so many ways to do things with Access reports that it just amazes me sometimes about what you can do. And the guy that I think is a huge expert in this area is Jim Detman. He contributes to a lot of stuff, and I'm sorry that he's not here today, but he's got a major project he's trying to get fielded here soon. I know David has a bunch of really neat reports that are also available in Access, but I just want to give a couple of examples where I don't use Word very often. But back in 1997, I worked for the U.S. Army, and I was managing their scholarship process. And we were able to create 3 basic scholarship announcement documents, basically the letters that go out to the high school seniors or the college freshmen or sophomores to say, hey, congratulations, you got a scholarship. But each of those letters was distinctly different based on various information that they might have given us. And in each case, we were able to create a single document which, based on the options available, could actually generate up to 32 differently formatted documents. Just one Word document, but based on those 5 parameters, you could either include or exclude various elements of the document, which meant you could have 32 differently formatted documents. In 2008, I worked on a project where we had half a dozen different people working on elements of a instruction manual, and we used Access to do it. We broke things into chapters and sections, and we were able to quickly, resort those sections and paragraphs in Access, and then we were able to generate a Word document. In this case, it wasn't actually a pre-formatted thing. It was a open Word from scratch, create a new document, and then start inserting text. As we inserted text, depending on the element of the report, we would bold it and indent it and do all sorts of different formatting issues. We used the formatted as rich text, so we were able to add rich text to it, and it was pretty cool. In today's environment, I'm working for a client who we have done a number of reports that are only 1 or 2 pages long that are mostly formatted text. So they originally, when I took over the project, they originally had these reports built with text boxes and or labels that contained all the text. But formatting that was a real nightmare. Trying to get, how Access is with regard to aligning things, trying to get the text box to line up with where the bottom of the third or fourth row in a paragraph was, or trying to insert a text box in the middle of something. Very, very obnoxious. So what we started doing was we started creating Word documents and using a mail merge to merge the data directly into those so that everything flows neatly. And you can also add logic to your mail merge documents, as in that first example above, where you can include or exclude things. You can format things differently based on what a parameter you have in in your data set, whatever. We've been doing that now for about a year, and I just thought it was time for me to kind of share what I've done in that arena, because there really wasn't a lot out there about using Access to populate Word documents. Okay, so the challenges of working with Word. The first thing I found out was, and this is, I don't recall this being the situation back in 1997 when I created those monster scholarship documents, but the first thing I found was that you cannot link directly from a Word document into an open access database. You can link to Excel or a CSV file or whatever, so but you can't link to an open access database. So then we had to do was figure out, okay, so I'm going to have to export the data to an external format. I found that with this particular client, they had used the caption property of many of the tables to display a different column header than the actual name of the field. When I used the transfer text method to transfer data out of Access into a text file, the column headers weren't showing up the way I wanted them to in all instances. So I basically just wrote my own script for creating a CSV file, and it's in this sample database, and everything I'm doing today is in this database. I'm actually presenting it from the database, and I've copied code and stuck that out there. So, this create mail merge data function, first thing it does is it takes the name of the letter you want to use, and it looks to see whether it can find that in my mail merge table. If it doesn't, it displays an error message and elegantly exits out. The next thing it does is it looks to see whether the query that is supposed to support this letter is returning any records, and if not, it elegantly exits out. And then if it otherwise, then it just goes on to export the data as a CSV file. The export as CSV basically just opens a record set. It loops through all the fields down here in this section down here in the bottom left to come up with the column names, and it uses the caption property of the field first if it exists, and if not, then it uses the name property of the field. And then it subsequently loops through each of the records in the record set and encapsulates those in quotes or whatever for the CSV file, and then over here it actually writes the file on the right hand side over here in this code right here. Next issue is working with Word. The automation is the object model, and I don't know it very well. I had to do a lot of internet searches to find documents and ask some questions on some of the documents. So what I want to do here is open up Word real quick using automation. And that's just a simple get object or create object kind of thing. It looks to see whether Word is open or not first, and if not, it opens it in here. You'll see that on the top of the Word, you have a mailings tab, and there are a number of items available for you here once you actually create a Word document. We'll come back to that in a minute, but I'm just going to leave this Word document open off on the side of my screen briefly. Loading Word, I've got a couple of functions. I've got a get Word function, which basically goes out and uses the get object or create object methods to open Word and display it. I've got a get Word document so that I can pass it a document name, and it goes out, it looks to see whether that document is already open in the documents collection, and if so, it sets the object appropriately. Otherwise, it goes down and gets that document. And let's see, and then saving files, we'll talk about saving files as an issue as well. Okay, so mail merge examples. I've got a little drop down here that sets a couple of parameters for my examples here. A simple mail merge. Okay, I've got some code here that opens this stuff up and does a couple of things. And in the midst of that code, I've got a couple of pop-up message boxes in order to basically stop the process so that I can continue it. So this is what a simple mail merge document looks like. The first thing you would do is you would select recipients. That's basically you selecting the data file you want to look at. You can type your own list of recipients or data. You can use an existing list, which is what I did, or you can actually select from Outlook. In my case, I just selected a data file that's in the same folder. I mean, a text file that's in the same folder that I'm working in. It's this CSV file right here, and I'm going to open it with where'd my open with Notepad++? I don't see it there. Interesting. Let's try this. I think I've got it open already. Here we go. So this is what this particular file looks like. It's basically run from a data table that's in the database. I run through that create mail merge data routine in order to get the information in this format. Now you can see you've got options here for inserting merge fields. So you just drop that down and you'll see all of the merge fields that are in that document. And this is like I said, this is a basic document. If we, once we've created this, we insert those. You can preview the results by clicking here in the preview results area, and you can use your buttons to move between each of the records. If you want to go back and look at that, you can. And for example, the word, if you want to actually see what all of the coding behind, the toggles behind this all look like, if you highlight your text and right click, well, there you go. There's an option here that says toggle field codes. You can achieve that same feature by clicking Shift F9, but now you can actually see what's going on in the background. And up here in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that this is in fact a word feature, not a hard-coded date, that automatically puts in today's date in that field. So, okay, so I'm going to move that off to the side, and then I finish that piece. And so this is what happens in this process is that it opens up the Word document, opens the data file, links the data to the tables, and then it actually creates a merged mail document. And you'll notice here that now I've got a letter called Letters 1. This is different from the merge document that I was just looking at. If you look over here, you'll see that I don't have any of the options here that I had before because I'm not linked to any data set in this letter. This is the actual letter itself. And you can see that there are 3 letters with the various elements in them. Okay, so now I'm going to move that back and skip that. Okay, and what that did was it then closes the letter. So for letter 2, what I wanted to do is my client had a situation where they're a mortgage company and they have borrowers, and they usually have they always have one borrower and they may have a second borrower. And they wanted to display the users' names like this, but they didn't want it to show a blank record, which is what happens when you look at like this. They didn't want it to show up like this if there was no second record. So through the formatting that we're using, we can modify the formatting so that you don't see that blank row if there is no second borrower. And the way you do that, we'll go down here and we'll toggle those field codes. And basically what I've done is I've placed the second field right after the first one. And then there's, with this /B delimiter here, says that if it's not blank, then insert the characters that are in quotes after this. Well, the only characters that are inside of those quotes is a carriage return. And it says insert that before this field name. I know it's confusing, but that's the way it works. So with this like this, if that record is there, it inserts the name after a carriage return. If that field is not there, then it just automatically goes down and inserts uses the second one here. So we'll go back and look at the data. Here's the first one example. If we go to the second record, you'll now see we have Jim and Cindy, and they're both on two separate rows, as opposed, and then we've got Jack and that should have been Diane instead of Joan. Okay, so now we can move off that example. And we've already basically looked at that data, so we don't need to go any further. So then the next thing that's really of interest, and which is what is the feature that gave me the ability to create that 32 distinct letters out of one document, is using if statements. So now we've got a document that looks like this, and I'm going to highlight it and view all of the field codes so that we can see what's happening. So we've got the name and the address and all that stuff at the top. And then down here we've got a couple of check boxes that I want to fill depending on the value of the field called checkbox in my data set. And then down here we've got a couple of subparagraphs that we want to, we got a couple of text strings that we want to embed depending on the value of these two variables, display paragraph 1 and display paragraph 2. So if we go up and we do the previews, what you'll see is the way that the coding is set up behind this is that if the value of checkbox is equal to 1 or 3, I want this top X area checked. If the value of checkbox is equal to 2 or 3, then I want to check this bottom one. And then there's an entire extra sentence or two down here that goes in here if display data or paragraph 2 is enabled in the data set. So if we go up here and look at the next record, you'll see that we've moved over, we've got this, and now we have more than just, we don't have the paragraph 1 text anymore. Now we have a bunch of other information, including a carriage return that goes in here. And if you look closely, we'll even see that we're using the guy's first name in this segment. And then in the third case, we've got both paragraph 1 and paragraph 3 or 2 displaying, and we've got the value of 3 in the variable for checkbox. So you'll see that X. So to go back here and look at this again, I want to look at this code real briefly. Basically what you'll see is we have nested if statements. And the format for an if statement for any of these Word template fields is you got to get the squiggly bracket down there first, and to do that you use the F9 key. And that basically puts the left and right squiggly brackets onto your form. Then you type an if, and then you can either do another squiggly brackets and type in merge field checkbox, or you can go up here to the insert merge field, stick that in there, and then set your values here like so. Now, one of the things I wanted to check here is I haven't done this, so I want to see how that works, because that's really supposed to be a numeric value. following the if statement and the conditional piece, or the condition, you have two sets of quotes. You don't have a comma like you do with an immediate if in Access. You just have two sets of quotes, and inside those sets of quotes you have what you want to display. In this case, if the value of checkbox is 1, I want to display an X. And if it's not equal to 1, then I want to evaluate another if statement. So I'm doing a nested if here. And I say if it's 3, then I want to put an X. And if it's not that, then I'm going to put two spaces, those two spaces. And then I have to make sure that I close out this question mark, or I'm sorry, this set of quotes with this set of quotes to encapsulate that false, this whole thing represents the false expression from this first if statement. So you can see how I did that. If we come down here, you can do the same type of thing. Let's see here, view toggles. So basically, I've got an if statement that says if display paragraph is true, then display this paragraph. Otherwise, I've got another if statement, and there's the quote that, actually that's not the quote. Oh, now I've got another if statement that says, right behind that one, it says if paragraph 2 is true, then use this paragraph, and use this value right here. And it actually includes, inside that set of quotes, it includes another merge field name. So that's how it gets so you can put, you can reference individuals, you can do things like correct the plurality of words based on, if you've got, for example, if you have two of these, then you could add an S for plurals and those types of things, or you could change this to these, and those, all of that type of formatting is available simply through making sure you have the right data set and then manipulating these things as we have here. Okay, so let me go on to the next one. We basically already looked at that. Oops. Okay, now remember that change I made to the if statement? It didn't like that change and it gave me an error, so I'm going to have to go back and fix that later. I was just playing around a little bit, and there's a couple of other options up here in the rules section. You can do you can build your if then else right here using an if then statement. You can even do I found this interesting. You could do a skip record, and what you'll see. So I just went ahead and said, okay, I want to try that skip record thing and see what that does. So when I'm in the preview mode here of the document, I've got pages 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so in the preview mode, they're all there. But if I go over and actually look at the merged document, the letter 4 that got merged, you'll see that I now only have 2 pages. So that second document, which didn't meet my criteria, is no longer displayed. I don't know particularly why I would do that, in all honesty. Let's go look at that a little bit. So I said skip it if checkbox is equal to 2 is the criteria I used in there. But you could, basically use anything. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure why I would use that. As a data guy, I would much more likely modify my query that I use for this particular letter to exclude those records that I don't want to mail merge at any given time. So I don't know where I would use that, but I just thought I would highlight that as an option as interesting as well. Okay, close that. Okay, the code I've got basically, and I didn't copy this part of it, but we can do this. Basically what I've done is each one of these buttons just calls a function and passes in a name. I'm hoping that you can see this and read it, and it's not too big. This is my mail merge, my main mail merge function. And I found some stuff from Albert Kalal out there on the internet, It was an MDB file, and it was very useful in understanding the mail merge, the Word object model, basically. And then you'll see that basically I just go through a couple of steps here. I run that mail merge function, and if it returns a false, then I display a message and leave the process. I then attempt to get the Word document, and if that process fails, I again eloquently leave the process. Then I go down and build the name of the document from a data file. I'm using a table to store my information. And the work I did with my client, I originally didn't use a table. I hard coded the stuff, and it just got too unruly. Every time I had to add a new document, I had to go in and change code. So we quickly adopted a mail merge table that contains the name of the document, or the name we want to reference the document as. Then it contains the actual path and the document name. And in my client's database, it also includes a comments column, because after we do the mail merge, we go out and update a couple of other fields, one of which is a comment, and we want to use a standard comment for that type of document. So we extract that information from there as well. But so then we go out, once we get the name of the document, we do this get Word doc, and if it doesn't find the document, it eloquently exits again. This is the process that actually takes the document template. It's not really a template, it is a .docx file, and merges it with the data. And if that process fails, it eloquently exits out again. This is the piece that actually takes that initial working mail merge document and creates the secondary letter, the one that is not merged but has all of the actual data embedded in it. And then finally down here, I save the information to a folder. In my client's app, I have a little, instead of these message boxes for reviewing things up here, basically I take them, right at this point here, after that merged document is created, I pop up an access dialog box. It's not a message box. It's my own my own form that I designed that gives them some options as far as what do they want to do. It lets them select how many pages they want to print, if they want to print it all. It lets them indicate whether or not they want to save the file to that client's in that client's document folder, and a couple of other things. And because I use the window mode AC dialog at that point, it pauses everything, which also gives them the option, because at this point the Word document is open on their desktop. They can actually go in and read it and edit it if they need to. If there's something that's not right, they can actually edit it at this point. And then on that dialog box, if they say cancel, then it doesn't go through any of this saving process or the other steps that go after that. But if they say okay, then it will send the document to the printer if it's supposed to go to the printer. It will save it if it's supposed to save it, and go through several other steps of updating various fields in the database. For example, it may update a date letter sent field in a particular table, those types of things. So by adding that functionality in there, I can determine what goes on after that. And then at the very end, what I want to do is I want to close out the Word document and close out Word. But I do that based on whether or not, first off, I look to see if the Word doc is still there. If it is, then it closes it without changes. If not, then it doesn't do anything. Then when I opened Word, when I use that get Word function up top, I actually set a global variable called be Word was open. And if it was open and the get object method worked, then that value is true. If it was not open and I had to open it myself, then that object was false, and I want to close Word when I'm done. So I have that in there. And then last thing I do is I want to make sure that I set object Word to nothing. If you fail to do these couple of steps here of setting the Word doc to nothing and setting the object Word to nothing, it will actually leave instances of Word, an instance of Word open on your desktop, but you won't be able to see it except through the task manager. And the only way you'll be able to close it is through the task manager. Although theoretically you could use, from the immediate window, you could set a variable to an object and use the get object to select that and then close it that way again. Basically the same way as I have done here in the code. All right, that is the end of my presentation for today. Does anybody have any questions? I see we lost Ron somewhere during the mix.
So Dale, you're doing all this as a mail merge so that the users can edit the Word documents.
Well, theoretically,
and control the formatting through Access. Is that correct?
Theoretically, it's not so much that they can edit the Word document, because 99% of the time they don't need to do anything.
Okay.
The problem we have right now is, like I said in that previous, the thing that brought us to this is that they started out having these 1- and 2-page Access reports that were hard to format, but were generally relatively easy to do. But they started getting these much longer legal documents, especially as a result of COVID. And I mean, it's crazy. The lawyers at these banks or these lending agencies are like, oh, we got to throw in all sorts of extra stuff now because of COVID. And so now they've got documents that are like anywhere between 3 and 6 pages long that we're generating.
Okay.
That may only have 10 mail merge items in them total. The names and mailing address, the property address, several dates, maybe some amounts for. So in some cases we might be saying, oh, you're renegotiating your loan, your new payment amount is going to be X. So we've got all of these different things. So it just takes all of those and creates a nice, simple way to create a 4 to 6 page document that the user doesn't have to just pull up Word and fill in the blanks, kind of thing. The application does it for them.
Okay.
And we're basically moving all of what used to be, let me phrase that, we're moving a lot of what used to be Access reports over into mail. The one thing I've had issues with so far is when I took over, they had a database table that contains their client information, and one of the fields in that was an OLE object field that was supposed to be the client's logo. And unfortunately, there is no consistency as to the format of that logo. It's not always a bitmap. It's not always a JPEG. In some cases, it was clipped from a Word document and pasted. So there's no consistent format. So I'm unable to currently export the image from that field out to an image file on the network. Once I'm able to do that, then I will be able to include that client logo up in the form header or in the report header, so that in addition to all the other mail merge functionality, we get the logo. So for right now, we're still using some of our reports because they can obviously display the logo as an OLO field on the report, on the Access report. So that's the
Okay.
only thing. That's the only thing that's keeping me from migrating almost all of those Access reports over into mail merge documents
Okay, so why not just go directly to PDF?
from Access.
Yes. Since you
Well,
only need to edit 1% of these documents, why not just go directly to PDF and generate a final report using the PDF format?
they don't have. They don't all. I mean, they've got like 50 people in their office, so they don't all have PDF editors. They've got PDF viewers, but not editing capability on everybody's desks. So
Yeah,
if
but you said only 1% of the people need to edit the document.
right, you'll see that what we do here is we do go straight to PDF. I
Yeah,
mean,
I saw that. Yeah, noticed that.
we do export directly to PDF. That's the basically the final step of the. If they don't hit cancel in that Access dialog box that pops up, then it exports the PDF and saves it to their document folder. But I'm not sure. You're talking about actually using Access to manipulate an Adobe file.
Yeah, to create a PDF.
I guess I'm still. How would you do that, David?
I just say go to PDF basically. I do it manually, but using code, you could go directly from Access to a PDF.
You just mean going directly from an Access report.
Well, directly from Access. You don't have to have the report, I don't think. Well, I guess you would need it just to see what's there, but you could go directly to PDF.
I mean, how would you? I mean, how would you come up with a 6-page document to do that? I don't understand what you're thinking. I don't know what you're understanding your thought process.
Okay. Well, a long text field can be 20 pages long, right? And you can have several short text fields and just bring them together, generate a report, and then send that report to PDF. That will be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, as much work as I've done with their database
Yeah.
and trying to do that, I mean, this feature gives me the ability. I mean, what you would have to do is, for the most part, you would have to build separate reports for each of those various conditions that you might have that would include or exclude various elements of the report. Whereas with the word merge document, you've got the ability to just provide that text, and then you just use an if statement in the document to say, if this condition is met, then display this text. If not, then don't. So that's why I'm doing it this way, is because it's I don't have to maintain nearly as many documents. Plus, what I get from my clients'
Mm-hmm.
is usually a long Word document. So to edit that, it's really simple. Once I determine what fields I need, I just create that merge file, that data file, and then I go through and I just replace. I search for things like people's names, and I say, oh, let me highlight this and change and delete it and insert this person's name. And if this is an address field, I just highlight that, delete it, and insert the address field. So it's really easy to edit the Word document as opposed to formatting an Access report.
Okay. Well, so I like what you're doing.
Trust me. I've fought with these Access reports over and over again, because it's like, okay, well, you want to reword just this one paragraph. Well, that means I have to go in, open the report, go to the label that contains that text, modify that the caption of that label, and then I need to go down and readjust the position of all the other controls on that report so that they fit properly with the new text. It's a real nightmare.
Yeah, I fought with that problem as well, so I understand it.
So at any rate, this, all this, this entire database is I'm going to post it right after the meeting out on the website, and then as soon as the recording is available. And Giorgio, I noticed a pop-up message from you earlier that said, when is the January recording going to be out? And in all honesty, I've been so busy with work lately, I haven't had a chance to ping the person who's supposed to be doing that editing. So I'm gonna contact her today, make sure she knows that this recording is available, and will then hopefully get the January recording available soonest. Does anybody have any other questions, either about today's presentation or other ideas for maybe next month? David, I'm still looking at you for a presentation.
Okay.
I'm not going to forget you, buddy. I'm not going to forget you.
Okay.
So are you going to do did you say that Carl was going to do had asked you to participate in the access
Yeah.
Vienna or whatever? That's cool.
Yeah, but he hasn't gotten back to me, so that's still on hold.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw something the other day that he had announced that they were going to do it, and he was looking for presenters.
Yeah.
So I saw his email from the other day on that. So that'll be interesting.
I kind of told him the same thing that I told you, Dale, is I'm not a big talker, so I try to shy away from giving presentations as much as I can.
I know the feeling. I'm not a I don't relish this role, but I'm passionate about access. So
Yeah.
it's like okay, let's just get out there and do it. And if you use too many ahs and ands and thes, my video editor has a habit of cutting those things out. She is a real stickler for those types of pauses, and cuts those out usually.
Yeah. And as you can see from my post on LinkedIn, what I do is fairly simple, and I don't do any coding, so it's all kind of pieced together.
I still have a hard time believing that your 900 object database doesn't contain any coding. That's just amazing.
Oh, it has code. It has code, but it's simple code that I've used over the years or found over the years. And most of the code is to open a form or create a report. The only time when I really have to use code is with the text-to-speech. That's the only thing in my application that requires code, to my knowledge.
Right.
When I go out to the internet and use Bing Maps or Google Earth, it's just a hyperlink. So it's pretty simple to do that, in my opinion. But there's no detailed code. I do not understand functions, for instance.
Do you use text-to-speech for readability for everybody, or do you use it primarily for hearing impaired or I mean for for other situations, for disabled people?
Yeah, it's for everyone, and there are two modes for my text-to-speech features. One is when you open a sub module, I'll call it that, or go into a subdomain, then some of the modules will say, welcome to this module.
I gotcha.
Okay, the other time is if I want to tell the user that certain calculations have been done and these are the values, then they can click on a button and it will read that information with a little amplification so that they know what they are hearing when the computer talks to them.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Okay.
That's pretty neat.
So I do those two things in the application. Quite often I have to turn the volume down because if I go into a certain subdomain, then I don't like to hear it talking to me all the time. And I've got to figure out a way to control that, or tell the person, if you don't want to hear the computer talking to you, turn the volume down on your computer. And I had one person that used one of my Excel workbooks, and she was startled when the module talked to them. To her.
Yeah.
You know, what the hell is going
I,
on here? And so, I have to think about how to control that a little bit more.
I can understand how that might be an item of confusion.
But the button just says, talk to me. And she clicked on it, and whoa!
Great. Okay, well, that's all I've got for today. I'm going to stop our recording.
Okay.